Greetings, it's Ian from RTO here. Welcome to Friday, which means it's a live album ranking. After the excitement of the panel shootout on Battle Royale last night, it's back to earth with a big bang this morning. And instead of being May the 3rd, it looks more like January the 3rd. It is horrible out there. It's that fine mizzle. Yeah, that won't get Rocky out. Anyway, we'll liven up today. We've got a live album ranking and a new album review to do today. So we're going to start off with the live album, and it's of a band called Mostly Autumn. Now they're sort of really influenced by progressive rock. They like people that sort of the sound like, you know, they've got the sound of Genesis and Pink Floyd, Renaissance, Jethro Tull, that sort of folk music in a blend. Very, very good band. I like their albums. I've done an album review of them, and one of my friends, Judith, likes this band, and she was the one that got me onto them. So thank you for that. I really enjoyed them. Now, they have released 14 live albums. There are more, but they're not available, and I couldn't find them. But there's 14 that I can discuss with you today. So we'll start. So, coming in at number 14. Now, this one is sort of a live album. But it was recorded in Abbey Road, and it's called Studio 2, and it came out in 2023. Playing on here we have Olivia, Spen and Josh, who does lead and backing vocals and keyboards. Brian Josh, yes, they are married. Electric guitars and keyboards. Chris Johnson on guitars. The one and only Mr. Ian Jennings. He spells his name just like me. Good man. Angela Gordon on flute, Andy Smith on bass, and Henry Rogers. So basically they're just going to Abbey Road Studios and play a few tunes. So they open this up one from a song from Sight of Day, The Man Without No Name. Pretty good track. Silver Glass from Heart of the Sky. It's a lovely version of that, actually. Passengers from Passengers. And we go back to the very first album with The Last Climb. Very nice version of Wheels Shared. Dressed in Voices, which was their newer albums. The House on the Hill's good. Go back to the Full of Sky album for Gaze, a lovely track. Tomorrow Dies from The Sight of Day. Into the Stars from White Rainbow. These are more their current stuff. We go back to the classic Passengers for Simple Waves. Heart, Body and Soul, which was a bonus track on the Sight of Day album. Stilettos of Golden Ghost, Dressed in Voices, a super song. Back to the classic from the debut album we all shared, Heroes Never Die. Now, it's a very strange album because I don't know why they call it live and put it into their live catalogue, because it's just them in a studio playing live. It's a bit different. I enjoy this though, to be quite honest. They're great musicians, so I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 6 out of 10. Okay, number 13. Now, this was released in 2002, recorded in 2002 in America, and it was released in 2003, and it is just called Live in the USA. So the musicians on here are Brian Joss, the original singer Heather Finley, Ian Jennings, Angela Gordon, Liam Davison on guitars, Andy Smith on the bass, and the drummer for this one is Jonathan Blackmore. So we go to the very first album. This is in their early career, for Nowhere to Hide, from all we shared. Great track, and it's a great opening track. Sets the scene. Then we have the beautiful The Spirit of Autumn Past, from the title of the album. Wonderful track that is. One of my favourite tracks by this band. Evergreen from the same album. That's a lovely track as well. The Last Climb, so much passion in that. Winter Mountain is a wonderful song. Great guitar work on that from from Josh. The Shrinkling Violet from The Last Bright Light. Wonderful track. Good album as well. Dark Before the Dawn. Another track from The Last Bright Light. Then we go to a track called Noises From My Head. Now the only place I could find this, it's on an anthology. It's one of them tracks they put on. It's really good. Never the Rainbow from The Last Bright Light. Fantastic track that is. Go back to the Spirit album for Please. It's a super track. And we end up with another brilliant and a 15-minute version of Mother Nature, which is a superb track. Well, you say it's just one of them classic, epic, should have been written in the 70s prog tracks from The Last Bright Light. A really good set this is. I think it was a festival in the middle of the day. There's a little bit gropey in places. I don't think the Americans could cope with it a little bit, but I quite like this because it's got a great version of Mother Nature. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 6.6. Okay, coming at number 12. This was recorded in 2003 at the Grand Opera House in York in the UK. So it's Brian, Heather, Iain, Liam, Angela Goldthorpe, which is actually Angela Gordon. Got married somewhere in there. With guests. Now, we've got Troy Donackley, who plays the Elaine pipes, who plays with Nightwish, of course. And we have members of the Micklegate Singers Choir. So they open this one up from a track from Passengers, Caught in a Fold. Another great track that starts. It's very dramatic. I like how they start there. I always find one of their tracks that really grabs you. Then we go to The Last Bright Light for a little bit of a Dark Before Dawn. Nice track. Answer the questions from Passengers. Always is a like to hear that live. Then they do a track off an album called Music Inspired by the Lord of the Rings. It's not music from the Lord of the Rings, it's inspired. It's a really good album. It's quite medievally, I think. And there's a wonderful track on there called Goodbye Alone, which is fantastic. Then we have Passengers, which is always a great track, one of my favourite tracks. The Gap Is Too Wide from The Spirit of Autumn Past. You can't get any better than that. It's 11 minutes of wonderful music. Distant Trains from Passengers and Bitterness Burnt. Wonderful. Then they do a cover and they do a version of Pink Floyd's Comfortably Numb, which is absolutely brilliant. With Brian and Heather doing the vocal bits, wonderful. Then a wonderful track called Class the Clocks, which is a 15-minute epic of Passengers. Blows you away every time, and that was the last track. It's just a great live album, some great long tracks, some great musicianship, well recorded. It's a nice place with a place to record. It's got some nice ambience. Blackmore's Night have recorded in the same place, and that's a great live album. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 7 out of 10. Okay. Number 11. Now this is one of the most current ones. It was recorded in the Netherlands at the Boerderij, or Borgia, I don't know how to pronounce it, in 2022. So obviously Heather's gone, so you've got Olivia now doing, excuse me, the lead vocals. Spahn and Josh. Bryn's there, Chris Johnson's on guitars, Ian Jennings as ever on the keyboards, the wonderful Angela Gordon on the flute and keyboards, fine flautist, Andy Smith on the bass and Henry Rogers on the drums. So a lot of these are from their more later albums. They do go back to some of the classics. So it starts off from a track from The Sight of Day, Tomorrow Dies. Wonderful vocal from Olivia, big boots to fill. Heather, Olivia, she's been with the band a long time. She was more in the background, but once Heather left, Olivia came in and is doing a great job. Spirit of Mankind, one of the best tracks off the Graveyard Star, which is their most current album. I do believe there is one due out. I do believe. Nowhere to Hide from the debut album. Olivia does a great vocal on that. Then we have The Spirit of Autumn Past. Does a great job on that. She really does cover the Heather songs throughout. The Last Climb, great version. Then Gaze from A Heart Full of Sky, wonderful little track. The Endless War, I love this track from Graveyard Star, quite moving. Bit of Passengers, and a really good version of Mother Nature, and Olivia sings it as good as Heather. Then they go off stage because they don't have a support band. See you in the second half, and the second half starts off with a track from one of Brian Josh's solo albums. It's called In for the Bite, and it's off Transylvania Part 1. The Count Demands It. It's a really good track. I haven't looked into his solo stuff, but I will on the listening of that. Into the Stars from White Rainbow comes next. Another really good track. Then we stay with the Right Rainbow for Western Skies. That is a superb track. It's great in the studio, but it's got more atmosphere on the live version. I just love that. Skin of Mankind, another one of Graveyard Star. These later tracks are wonderful live. Then we have Changing Lives from Sight of Day. Wonderful track. Silver Glass is a track from Heart Full of Sky. Lovely singing on that. Wonderful sound. Heart, Body and Soul was a bonus track from A Sight of Day, and that's always good for a laugh. White Rainbow, 18 minutes of pure magic. You lose yourself in that track. It's a wonderful track. The title track off the White Rainbow album. It's got so much more atmosphere in it as a live track. Then we go back to the most current album, The Harder That You Hurt from Graveyard Star. Fantastic versions of Heroes Never Die from the debut For All We Shared. Wonderful. And this one ends with Forever and Beyond from Sight of Day. There's nothing wrong with this album, but there is one fault: the shoddy editing. You know, you can tell it's just been sort of glued together, and no one's really had any thoughts about it. It's a shame because the playing on this is absolutely top drawer, but it's just a very bad edited. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 7.3. Okay, coming in at number 10. Now, this is from 2006. It was recorded at the London Astoria in 2005, and it's called Storms Over London. This is Brian, Heather, Iain, Liam, Angela, Andy, and on drums Andrew Jennings, with Ben Matthews, who comes on. Now, Ben Matthews, of course, has appeared in Thunder. We've got Troy Donockley on the low whistles. Olivia Sparnham. Yes, I said she was in the band. She was on backing vocals on this, and Rachel Jones. So we start off with a track called Out of the Green Sky, which is off their album they were touring with at the time, Storms Over the Still Water. It's a short track, but a really good, just like Broken Glass. Two great tracks off that Storms Over the Still Water album. Go to the classic Passengers for Answer the Questions. Heather is just on fire. Black Rain, a wonderful track off the Storms album. Then we go to The Last Bright Light for a couple of tracks. Never the Rainbow, brilliant track. Distant Train, one of the best versions I've got of that. Evergreen from The Spirit, always a firm favourite of the fans. We go back to the Storms for a little track called Carpe Diem. So many people have recorded a track called Carpe Diem. This is another fine version. It's so Renaissance. This was just unbelievable. Then they do a track called Finlander. Now this is words written in 1940 by Vico Commenti. It's one of the most important songs of Finland. The title track from Storms Over Still Water. Wonderful version. Really atmospheric. And then they just do a little bit of Spirit of the Autumn Past. Wonderful album. Plenty of songs off the Storms Off Water. Good album. Heather's on fire on this one. It's really good, so I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 7.5. Okay, coming in number 9. This was recorded at the High Voltage Festival in 2011 at Victoria Park, London, and it's called Live at High Voltage. So this one's Brian, Olivia, Iain. Got Anne-Marie Helder on flute here. Now she's another person that's been in and out of the band. Liam Davidson, Andy Smith on bass, and Gavin Griffiths is now doing the drums. Opening up with the classic from Passengers, Distant Train. Always a good track. Answer the Question from Passengers as well. 2 great tracks to open this one. Evergreen. Wonderful little track from Spirit of Autumn Pass. Then we have Deep in Barrowdale, which is a track off their Go Well Diamond album. Absolutely wonderful track. One of my favourites on that album. Then we have a ball-breaking track called Question in Eyes. Now this is a song from one of Ian Jennings' solos. It's called Breathing Space Below the Radar. Another album I will be looking into because I love this. It is brilliant. Heroes Never Die always is a classic. Really good, considering this is recorded outside, and obviously there was a band that was sort of during the day, and they picked some great tracks to sort of promote their music. It's a pretty good album. I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 7.7. Okay, number 8. This was recorded on the 24th of August 2002 at the Canterbury Fayre. Brian, Heather, Ian, Liam, Angela Goldthorpe, Andy Smith and Jonathan Blackmore on drums. Very short album, but it sort of showboats their early stuff. Winter Mountain, great track to open with from the Spirit of Autumn Past. The Dark Before the Dawn, lovely little track. Brilliant. The brilliant Evergreen as ever from Autumn Past. The Last Climb, wonderful track from All We Shared. Please from the Spirit of Autumn. And another great version of Mother Nature. I thought that they chose these tracks very well. They have a little slot on at a festival. Pick some of the best songs that they've done up to that time. Short, except the last one, Mother Nature. You couldn't leave that off. It's really showcased mostly Autumn, this did. So I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 8 out of 10. Okay, now number 7 is a bizarre album. It's not a double album. It came out in 2 separate parts. So you've got Live 2001 Part 1 and then Part 2. Now it was recorded in 2009 on their spring tour. So it's Brian, Heather, Iain, Anne-Marie Helder is doing flutes and keyboards on this one. Liam Davidson, Andy Smith and Gavin Griffiths. So album 1 starts off with a great track called Fading Colours from Heart Full of Sky. Always like that track. Caught in a Fold from Passengers. Great track. And then we have a track off an album called Glass Shadows, and it's called Flowers for Guns. I love the guitars on that. Excellent track. Original Sin, again from Glass Shadows. And then we go back to the classic Passengers for Simple Ways. Spirit of the of Autumn's Past, one of my favourite tracks, and it seems to crop up on all their live albums. I think they must like playing that one. Half the Mountain from The Last Bright Light's fantastic. Evergreen as ever. So we go on to part 2. And we have A Winter Mountain. Opens up part from the Spirit album. Dark Before the Dawn from The Last Bright Light. Wonderful track as ever. Answer the Question from Passengers. The Last Bright Light. Some great tracks on this. All my favourites. Above the Blue from Glass Shadows, which is the album they were sort of touring with. Then we go back to the debut album, another track that they don't do as much. Nowhere to Hide, Close My Eyes. Broken Glass from the Storms album. Superb version of that. Then we get The Last Bright Light. No, we don't. We get Pocket from Heartful of Sky. Tearing Down the Fairy Tale from Glass Shadows. Carpe Diem. And we end up with the classic Heroes Never Die. I don't know why they edit it as 2 albums, just put it out as a double album. But it's a really good album, so I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.2. Okay, coming in number 6 is an album that came out in 2015. It's called Box of Tears, and it was recorded on their 2014 tour. So it's Brian, Olivia, Iain, Anne-Marie Helder's now doing some on the flutes and keyboards. Chris Johnson's on guitars. Andy Smith on the bass. And Alex Cromarty, another drummer. They go through their drummers like Spinal Tap. And it is Dressed in Voices in its entirety, which is a pretty good album. So you get Saturday Night, Not Yours to Fall, Running, See You Home, First Day at School, Down by the River, Skin on Skin, The House of the Hill, The Last Day, Dressed in Voices, The Library, and Footsteps. Now, I was never a bit, I like the album, but when they do it live, it's far better. Absolutely more atmosphere. I love this. And if I want to listen to this album, I always put this version on. And I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 8.5. Number 5, we go to the very first live album that came out in 2001, and it's simply called The Story So Far. So on here it's Brian, Heather, Iain, Liam, Angela Goldthorpe, Andy Smith and Jonathan Blackmore, Rachel Jones, Mark Atkinson and Gina Dootson doing some backing vocals. So these are tracks off their first albums, and they're stunning. Porcupine Rain from All Four We Shared, a great track. I wish they'd do this one more live, because I do love that track. Nowhere to Hide for All We Shared as well. A brilliant version of Evergreen. Oh, absolutely brilliant from the Spirits album. And then they do the title track from that album. Then a 10-minute version of Heroes Never Die, which blows me away. The Night Sky, another track from that debut album, which is amazing. The Dark Before the Dawn from The Last Bright Light, great version. Shrinking Violet's brilliant on here. And then we have the Never the Rainbow and The Last Bright Light, a really good live album. Showboats from the first 3 albums, wonderful sound. It's a good solid album, so I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.6. Number 4, now this came out originally on DVD in 2004, and they released it as a CD in 2005, and it's called The V Shows. Recorded at the Astoria Theatre. It's Brian, Heather, Iain, Angela Gordon Goldthorpe, Andy Smith, Liam Damson and Andrew Jennings is on the drums. Troy's there playing the Uranium pipes, and the Regent String Quartet are there as well. So they play the whole of Passengers, which is brilliant. It's one of my favourite albums. So the tracks are caught in the fold. Somewhere in between Another Life, First Thought, the White Light, Simple Ways, Bitterness Burnt, Distant Train, Answer the Question, Past the Clock and Passengers. Brilliant live. Absolutely. wonderful. Probably the best vocal from Heather doing the whole of that album, wonderful. And then the second CD is just some of their classics. So we start off with The Night Sky from For All We Shared. The Spirit of Autumn's on here. Evergreen's on here. Never the Rainbow. Heroes Never Die. Mother Nature. And they end this with a great version of Genesis Afterglow. Absolutely stunning version. I love this. The whole of Passengers Live. And a great rendition of Afterglow to end the show. You can't get any better than that. So I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 8.8. Okay, coming in at number 3. It's called Still Beautiful Live. So these were recorded. Well, some of the first recordings they did after Heather had left. So it's Brian, Olivia. She's still sparring them now. They haven't married. Ian Jennings, of course, Anne-Marie Helder, Liam Davidson, Andy Smith, and Gavin Griffiths. Ian Jennings and I think Brian are the masterminds of this band. Some of Ian's keyboard work is fantastic. So this one opens up from a track from Go Well Diamond, Hold the Sun. Do like that one. Got quite a few tracks from this. They're all from the Go Well Diamond album. Got Deep in Barradale, Something Better, Forever Young, and Ice. Brilliant tracks off that album. I think they sound really good live. Again, they sound a lot better than in the studio, I think. Then they go to The Last Bright Light for The Dark Before Dawn. You know, Olivia taking over from Heather. Really strong track. She does well on that. The Last Time. Question 9 from Ian Jennings' Radar, Below the Radar album. Heroes Never Die, For All We Shared. Great track. Olivia's first time we heard her sing it, great. Passengers, we go to there for a couple of 3 tracks. Distant Train, Answer the Question, Caught in a Fold, Nowhere to Hide from the debut albums. Then we go to Go Well Diamond, the title track. First Thought from Passengers, For All We and Evergreen, and a great track and one of the best tracks off the Go Well and When the War Is Over. As I said, filling Heather's boots was a big task, but I think Olivia stepped up to the plate. It's a bit like Phil Collins when Peter Gabriel stepped up to the plate and carried on. She's a great singer in her own right, and she sings the other songs really well. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 9 out of 10. Okay, coming in at number 2 is the album of The Place in the Netherlands that I can't pronounce, and it was recorded in 2012. I'll put it up. There you go. That's what it's where they recorded this. It's Brian, Olivia, Ian, of course, Anne-Marie Helder, Liam, Andy Smith, and your drummer on this is Gavin Griffiths. So this one opens up with a track from Passengers, Distant Train. Now this was the album, the tour that promoted the Ghost Moon Orchestra, and they do Unquiet Tears, which is a fabulous track. Drops of the Sun, a fabulous track. The Devil and the Orchestra, one of my favourites off that album. Then we go back to the Spirit album for a wonderful version of Evergreen as ever. A little bit of Ice from Go Well Diamond. You can tell Olivia's got into the role because she's not so nervous. So she sings that a lot. Sings it brilliantly on the previous live album, but this, she knocks it out of the park. Questioning Eyes, Ian Jennings' little thing, a wonderful thing. Then they go off stage and have a little break, and they come back and start the second part of the show with Dark Before the Dawn, The Last of the Bright Light. Deep in Barrowland, sounds great. Passengers, of course, can't go far wrong with that. The Last Climb, you can't have a concert without that track. Tennyson Mansion from the Ghost album, and Wild-Eyed Skies. Really, wonderful versions. The Last Bright Light, then we have a bit of Heroes Never Die. The best version of When the War Is Over, brilliant. The Last Train from the Moon album, and Tonight, superb album. Olivia's really in her stride now as lead singer. You know, it just sounds a lot better than. Her voice was great on the 2011 live album, but it's really, I think she feels a little bit more relaxed now. So it's a great album, and I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 9.2. So my number one live album. It's one of those live albums that everything was right, and it's just called That Night in Leamington, recorded in 2010, and it was Heather Finley's last concert, and that's how it. It was just perfect for her. Absolutely emotional. It's a superb. So on here we've got Brian and Heather, Iain, Anne-Marie Helder's there, Liam Davison's there, Andy Smith on the bass, Gavin Griffiths on drums, Olivia's there on backing vocals and percussion. So in this emotional concert, starts off with a wonderful rendition of Fading Colours, and Heather sounds brilliant on it. She sounds brilliant on all this. She gave it all guns on this album. Caught in a Fold from Passengers, Flowers for Guns from Glass Shadows, and Original Sin from Glass Shadows. Blinding versions. The Spirit of Autumn Past. Can't go any better than that. Simple Ways from Passengers. There's just all that. Last Bright Light, Passengers, Shrinking Violet, Carpe Diem. The hits just keep flowing here. Winter Mountain, The Dark Before the Dawn, Answer the Question, Nowhere to Hide, Half the Mountain, and probably the best version of Mother Nature she ever sang. Oof. Above the Blue, For All, Heroes Never Die, Evergreen from Evergreen, and then she does a little farewell speech full of emotion. As I said, this is one of them. Everyone played brilliantly this night. Everyone went slow. It's just one of them happening nights, and it was a great way for her to sign off, and the crowd loved it. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 9.5. So there we go, quite a lengthy live album ranking, but all of these live albums, it was tough because they are so good. I love listening to their live music. This is one of them bands, I think they sound a lot better live than in the studio, and they're fantastic in the studio, but all the songs come to life when they're performed. So I've really enjoyed doing this one, and there we go. Okay, I'll be back very shortly. We've got a new album to do, and it's from a great heavy metal band from Germany called Accept, and their new album, Humanoid. So I'll be looking at that. So bye for now.